The following is an independently produced community access program. The viewpoints expressed are those of the community access producer and do not reflect those of Shaw Cable Systems. The program is presented in response to CRTC policy guidelines regulating community programming.
Welcome to Kerby Centre's Successful Aging Series. We appreciate you taking time to be with us today. I'm Luanne Whitmarsh and I'm the CEO of the Kerby Centre, and today we're going to talk about elder abuse. It is a difficult conversation to have, but a very important one. To have a conversation with me today, I'm joined by Elizabeth Descamp from Calgary Family Services and Steve Barlow from Calgary Police Services. Welcome, Elizabeth and Steve.
Thanks, Luanne.
So today we're going to talk about elder abuse, and it is a difficult conversation. I think that the city of Calgary would be surprised by what we actually have experienced in elder abuse. And Elizabeth, can you talk a little bit about the elder abuse response team and how it was created?
Certainly, Luanne. The elder abuse response team was funded in 2011, so that's really the start of that team. But its roots go back quite a long way beyond that. There was about a decade when a number of agencies and individuals in Calgary were really working around the issue of elder abuse. And it wasn't until 2011 that we got funding from the province for Safe Communities Initiative funds to put together a team that would really focus on the criminal aspects, the relief for victims who are experiencing a criminal level of elder abuse. Before that, the emphasis was mostly on prevention, and there wasn't much we could do in terms of actually helping somebody who called. So we've seen a big upswing and uptake since we got involved with the elder abuse response team. And it's really this amazing thing that our community, Calgary, has a place to go, a place to get help.
That's great. And so, Steve, we have a collaboration between Calgary Family Services, Calgary Police Services, and Kerby Centre that are leading the current initiative in Calgary. How do you see the police fitting into that, and where do you see the role of police in a collaboration like that?
Well, I want to follow up with what Elizabeth was saying, is we're part of this team and have been from the very beginning. And when you get to build together, the important part is that we all bring pieces to the puzzle. And our piece to the puzzle is a lot of people will see the police as always coming in and it's all about laying criminal charges and stuff like that. When we look at this as being part of a prevention team, it's first more about the prevention. If we can be part of that, then the other end of it doesn't happen. And so I guess the big thing for us as the police service is being able to be part of this team, and when we have to get involved, we have the expertise to take it all the way through into the court system. But in saying that, one of the biggest things that we like to be able to work with is the understanding that if that's not where it has to go, then that's the last resort.
That's excellent. So the collaboration that we have, the Elder Abuse Response Team, Kerby Centre is the coordinator of that, so sort of the administrator of the program. As well, we have the shelter, the Kerby Rotary Shelter for abused and homeless seniors, and we have the Elder Abuse Response Line. I wonder, Elizabeth, if you can give us a little bit of a talk about what your agency offers to the team.
Certainly, Luanne. Our agency really is provides that kind of specialty of social workers who work both in conjunction with a police constable on a case, so providing both kind of the emotional safety aspects, trying to look at how to support people, both victims and in some cases as well the alleged abusers. And also we contract with nurses to be a part of the team, and we are part of as well a community response to elder abuse that's really on the preventative side, that is a collaboration of a number of agencies called the Way In, who provide on-the-ground social work services to anyone who needs them. And there's a piece of their work that is around elder abuse, and there's a very good relationship between the different organizations and the elder abuse response team, referring back and forth.
That's excellent. Do you find within the Calgary Police Services that elder abuse has become a comfortable conversation? We're talking about it, we're teaching officers, and we're understanding what that is, so the response is really defined from the police services?
When it comes to the police services and the training part of it, we're slowly growing into it. I still count this as new, and I don't say that in a bad way. I say it in, when you're training people, you want to make sure that they're getting the right message. Within our department, we are able to have those discussions. Our recruits are trained, and there are discussions about elder abuse. But the biggest thing is that our elder abuse response team, the one we're talking about that is joint with the Calgary Family Services and the social workers, also falls into our domestic violence unit. So it's a team within the bigger domestic violence unit, and so there's lots of discussion about it. And our members understand the flow through our service because there's so many touch points. It can be a call through our regular lines, our regular police lines, or it can come, of course, through the Kerby Centre, and then a response. So there's lots of times where we will have uniformed street officers who will go out to the house first before we are engaged, or it can come through the Kerby Centre, and we will send our team out directly. So I mean, it can come through either way, and the discussions are actually very easy and very open now.
I think that's really important, that people can talk to police, social work, and the shelter through a variety of different ways. None of it is all right, and none of it is a scariest thing. So when you call any one of the numbers, and those numbers are flashing on your screen as we speak, it's just really important that people call. People go with their what's called gut feeling. If you think something is not right, call, and a team of professional people can actually respond. And Elizabeth, when people call and social work is involved, not everything will end up in a criminal sort of element. How does that work so people are comfortable knowing if they call, they can still have their needs met from the community perspective?
I think that we've been coming up with a way to have this be a more seamless response, and we're still working on this. I would be honest about that. When a call comes and it's not a criminal matter, the elder abuse response line at Kerby Centre makes a referral to, and the coordinator of that line speaks with the supervisor of our counseling program, and they look at, how do we take care of this? Do we refer to one of 15 places in the community, all of whom are doing good work? Do we ask a social worker to go out? Do we ask that social worker to go out, if it's not a criminal matter, with a nurse or with another social worker, or are they safe to be there by themselves? So we're still in the process, because elder abuse is pretty complex and can have many different faces. We're still really paying attention to how we do this. I would say that we don't have it isn't cut and dried at this point, but we're managing to always be returning phone calls and making sure that whoever calls the line gets a response back and knows what's happening.
That's great. I wonder if we could talk just a little bit, and feel free to jump in, both of you, about what the definition of elder abuse is. Because I think for a lot of people, it's an unknown, it's uncomfortable, and maybe they just need to have something a bit more concrete to think about. Do you want to lead in that, Steve?
Well, like you say, it's very complicated. There's many forms of elder abuse. We're generally looking, when it comes to the police side of things, is we're looking at the older population. I don't like to put an age on it, because it truly does vary, and it also varies between who's involved. because it can be a caregiver who's a family member, it can be a caregiver who's not a family member, it can just be somebody in the community who is taking advantage of a bad situation, somebody who is vulnerable, and I mean, the one thing I do want to revert back to before we get too far past, or before we get further into this, is the one topic about when we are called, and meaning the police specifically. One of the biggest messages I want to make sure people understand is that it doesn't mean that we're going to go through the big process of being part of taking statements and going through the court process. And you had alluded to that before, but I just want to make sure that that message is crystal clear.
That's important.
That we are part of this team, and just because we get involved doesn't mean that we're going to go into the justice system. We are part of a team, and sometimes it's about advice, sometimes it's about leading people in the right direction and giving guidance and assistance.
That's important. Thank you so much. So besides physical abuse, let's name other things that you're aware of, Elizabeth.
I think, actually I want to just back up a minute.
Sure.
I know that right now, for those of us who have been working in elder abuse for a period of time, people don't mistake elder abuse for domestic violence that's aged. Mm-hmm. But I think in general in the community there's an awful lot of the idea is still quite strong that elder abuse is actually domestic violence. And it is, to some extent, the complexity of elder abuse that needs to be talked about. So you've got financial abuse. That's that in our line. That's the with our statistics for this past year. That's the most highly occurring. But there's also things like, I guess the next ones in line might be financial abuse, physical abuse, medication abuse, emotional abuse, neglect. Those things, and by someone who has a trusting relationship with the elder. Mm-hmm. So those things are quite complex, because if you think about it, our local statistics are that, and I'm not such a statistician, I just happened to read this stuff today, so please, but almost 61% of the cases are the alleged abuser is an adult child. And when you just think about how important a sense of being a successful parent is to people, and as they age, what a great tragedy is for someone if their child hurts someone else, or if their child becomes a drug addict. It is incredibly difficult for an older adult to say, my child is abusing me.
Yeah.
They need that money, really, you can have that. So a lot of things that that really is a form of coercion, like saying, unless you give me that money, I'm not going to let you see the grandkids. Or that is kind of a combination of coercion, threats, financial abuse. Sure. It's just very, very difficult for us to think that this, which is almost like a cancer, is actually alive and well. And I think with more people, the demographics of our society are that we have more and more elders, so that for the first time in 2015, excuse me for going on about this, but there'll be more elders for the very first time than there are kids under 15. Sure. Yeah. So we have people living longer, healthier, but some with intense care needs, dementia, some of the things that really add to contributing to them being the brunt of elder abuse.
Sure. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and talk some more with Elizabeth and Steve about elder abuse. Welcome back to Kerby Centre's Successful Aging series, and today we continue to talk about elder abuse. Again, I'll let you know that elder abuse is a difficult conversation, one that we need to have. Welcome back, Elizabeth and Steve. It's good to continue discussing this with you. I wonder if we could talk a little bit about elder abuse from the perspective of why isn't it being reported? What's happening with that? Like, where does that come from?
If the first thing I go to is that item I spoke about before, which is really about the sense of the ability of a parent to be successful. But there are other things that really kind of often happen. One is that I think as a rural area, farmers have always had to butt out of each other's family business in order to get help on the crops and hold some kind of distance. And when I was working on domestic violence in a small community in Alberta, I really saw how that themes through. I think that we don't want to be in each other's family business. And when we see something going on, we're not very comfortable saying something about it.
Steve, what would you add to that?
I totally agree. My background goes back to dealing with children for many years in child abuse. And the difference here, though, is children at one point generally will come forward, even if it's later on in their life. When you're dealing with older adults and they are relying on family, friends, people to assist them for everyday things, and that then starts going badly. Many of them will suffer in silence because they are held to that. And when we talked about some of the different forms of abuse, when you talk about medication being given or overprescribed, or we have physical and sexual abuse, these are things that are things that people don't want to talk about. And that's why we're here today, is so that we are bringing them up. And when you get into the family dynamics, you may have a sibling who is seeing what's taking place and is so concerned about the bigger part of the family part, thinking that if I bring this forward, I'm going to ruin the family. And that's something that is going through everybody's mind. So just like you were saying with people not wanting to get into other people's business, we have to. If we don't, then we'll never be able to tackle the problem. And I guess one of the biggest messages is, just like I was saying before, which is just because we get involved doesn't mean, not guaranteed. I mean, there are very severe cases that people will end up in with charges laid and court happening. But it's more about stopping it, making it so that we can step in and these can become healthy relationships, because the strain on the family is going to actually get worse and worse. As we see the children end up having to take care of more of their parents, we're going to see this balloon bigger than I think any one of us at this during this discussion will even ever realize.
I agree.
I think one of the dynamics that the elder abuse response team has seen a number of times is when a parent, an elder, is taking care of a mentally ill adult child, and there's abuse that happens, and the elder just doesn't see any way, any other resources, any way to solve this. And so it goes on and people don't talk about it. And I think that one of the things that's so great about this team and the preventative work they do is that they really support and try to find resources to help people to be able to move to healthier living situations, and not just the elder, but also in many cases the alleged abuser. So it's a complex problem that requires kind of a complex number of solutions.
It's interesting because now that elder abuse is being talked about, I think people would be surprised to learn the average age of a person who the elder abuse response team is working with. And Elizabeth, can you talk about that?
Well, I noticed in our evaluation from this past year that the average age of person who worked with the elder abuse response team was 79.
Wow.
In addition to that, most people were mobility impaired, almost 50%, and have other kinds of health conditions and issues, including disabilities. So the picture that gets drawn of the person who often suffers elder abuse is a picture of a very frail older adult, someone who really doesn't have a lot of capacity to get out of the situation by themselves. And I think that's why it's important for neighbors and other children to take that step and to begin to actually assist that person and stick their nose in somebody else's business.
Well, and I want to follow up on that, because sticking their nose in somebody else's business may be a phone call to the variety of different numbers that are out there just to get advice, just to ask the question of, I think I'm seeing this, but I'm not sure and I don't know what to do. And as that neighbor or that brother, sister, aunt, uncle, grandchild, because there's so many people who see it, ask the question and say, okay, so now what? Because sometimes it's as easy as just making a referral, and the other bigger sources or agencies to be able to step in, because a lot of times I think it's the stress of what is taking place that is causing the rest. When you sit there and think of people looking after their parents, a lot of times they have their own families, and you throw both of those stressors in there, that's where a lot of it comes in. Because as we've always said, generally people aren't mean people. It just happens.
Yeah. Continuing on that theme, what would you say are the more known warning signs for people to have in their brains to watch out for? What are some of those key things that we know could be warning signs of elder abuse?
I think just to kind of start it off, I think if someone notices a real change of behavior or appearance of someone, sometimes what I hear is that a person who always has had a cordial relationship with either a pharmacist or a bank teller starts showing up with an adult child and seeming to not making eye contact and seeming to be uncomfortable being in that relationship. So those might be some of the things, besides bruises and beginning to be unkempt and to have the house kind of fall apart. Those are the general things people kind of look at.
Sure. I think that there's opportunity for those that come in contact from outside the family to think about things. And so I know that we talk a little bit about meter reading, newspaper deliverers, gas readings, those kinds of folks that come in contact with older adults and they're seeing a change. There's an opportunity for them to just say, I really need to talk about this, and I want the Elder Abuse Response Team and those sorts of services that are out there to look at this person because I've known something is different now.
And I'd really put in a plug for Calgary Seniors Resource Society and their Senior Connect program, where they do train those meters readers, train the bank tellers, and go knock on the doors when it's needed. So I'd really put in a plug for that piece of the whole community response.
Well, and I think to follow up on some of that, the great things that we're starting to see is we're starting to see the bigger government agencies starting to look at legislation change. When we look at financial abuse, that's one of the biggest events that takes place. And so, like you said, the bank tellers, when they start seeing different transactions and stuff that, you know what, this is out of the ordinary, it is so easy to make that phone call and just bring somebody else alerted into it, because it's so, the social workers in this business can step in very discreetly, make some inquiries, and be able to come forward with information that may raise to the level of the Elder Abuse Response Team, or may not. And that's the best part about it. And the more we continue just working with each other in the different agencies, the better chance we have of being able to step in before it gets to a point where the police truly have to step in.
I would say that Calgary really cares about older adults. There is a great number of people that are working on behalf of the older adults for a variety of different ways, including elder abuse. There's our collaborative, which is the Kerby Centre Calgary Family and the Calgary Police. There's, you mentioned the Seniors Connect program. I think that's really important. There's also another collaborative called the Action Group for elder abuse. Do I have that right?
Yes.
And so there's a lot of organizations and people that genuinely care about the safety, lifestyle, and opportunities for older adults. What would be the thing that you want older adults to know, Elizabeth, so that they are calling and making those connections? What would you say to that?
I don't know. I think that this is what I would say. What's most compelling is that the people who work on the elder abuse response team and throughout this large network of people who are involved in supporting older adults are kind and caring people. And stepping out does not mean that you're giving up your autonomy or giving up your family. And I'd also say that it's important because abuse causes early death, and that it's really important to put an end to it and to tap into this wonderful caring community that you talked about.
What would you add to that?
I think the addition that I look at for this is that we are part of all of this team, and I know I've said this more than once. We come and generally are looked upon as the enforcement part of this. But the more that we've been involved in all of the collaborations, not just with elder abuse, but in many different programs with the Calgary Police Service, is that we're part of the prevention as well. The more we can be part of the prevention piece of it, then we deal with the very serious cases, which are very unfortunate, but we can spend more time dealing with the serious cases and be able to get other people involved. That's, I think, our biggest message.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much for being here. It's a really important conversation. Elizabeth and Steve, it's been wonderful. If you are experiencing elder abuse, or you know someone who is, you need to step up. There's people out there that can support you. Thank you for joining us for this segment. Kerby Centre has the shelter for abused seniors. We're happy to help in that way as well. Our website is www.kerbycentre.com, and we're on Twitter and Facebook. Take care of you.